Easy Steps to Liberation Quta said. O wise Brahmins, L as requested by Vyasa, Bhagavan Sanakumara here gives the instructions regarding means to liberation. There are 3 ways mentioned in the Vedas for attaining liberation. These are, listening to the praise of Shiva, singing his praise and meditating upon Shiva. The sages then asked Sudha Muni, O sage, you have prescribed the 3 ways, viz. Hearing the praise of Shiva, singing his praise and meditating upon him. But if one is unable to follow any of the above, tell us how, without much effort, one can attain liberation. Sudha replied, if one is unable to study the scriptures and follow their dictate, he can install either Shiva's idol or lingo, and engage in its worship every day. In this way one can cross the ocean of samsara. Shiva's grace alone is 188 sufficient to attain liberation. Many rishis of yore by merely worshipping Shivalinga or his idol have become Jivan Muktas. The rishis further asked, it is customary that all deities are worshipped in the form of idols. Kindly enlighten us as to why Shiva alone is worshipped in both forms, i.e. the idol as well as the lingo. To this Sudha replied, O sages, none but Shiva can answer your question, for its significance is deep. However, I shall tell you what Shiva imparted through the line of Sadgurus. Shiva alone exists as form and formless. He is the creator of the universe. In his transcendental form he assumed the form of linga, and in his all-pervading nature he assumed the form of an idol. Thus he is worshipped both as a linga and idol. He is the supreme being, the absolute Brahman. The other deities do not possess Brahmanhood, nor are they transcendental. They are thus worshipped only as idols with form and name. Sankara alone is Brahman. The others are only jivas. He is verily the Pranava, the quintessence of all the Vedas. In times of yore, on Mount Mandaragiri, the same question was asked of Nandikesvara by Brahma's son, the wise Sanakumara. Nandikesvara gave the same answer to Sanakumara. Further, Sanakumara wanted to know about the manifestation of the linga. Nandikesvara answered thus, O child, I shall narrate to you what exactly happened in former times. There arose a quarrel between Brahma and Vishnu. In order to subdue their pride, the Supreme Lord, the absolute Brahman, manifested in the battlefield as a column of effulgence for the welfare of the world and revealed himself as an effulgent linga. From thence the linga became the symbol of Brahman transcending attributes, and the idol became his form with attributes. 192. Quarrel between Brahma and Vishnu greater than Ingaga. While the glorious Vishnu was slumbering on Adisha, along came Brahma quite unexpectedly and addressed Vishnu thus, Who are you? Even on seeing me you are arrogant enough to continue reclining. Young one, get up. Look at me, your creator. Whoever insults the worshipful guru is a traitor. Penance has been decreed for such a fool. Enraged by these words, but appearing calm and peaceful, Vishnu said, Child, come, sit on this seat. Why does your face reflect an agitated mind? Brahma replied, O Vishnu, over the passage of time you have become proud. I am the protector of the world as well as of you. To this, Vishnu said, Young one, this world is contained within me. You have risen as an offspring from the lotus of my navel. Your words are meaningless. Nandikesvara said, 191. In this way both the conceited gods continued to tell each other, I am the Lord, not you. They came to the point of destroying each other. Brahma took the form of a swan and Vishnu took the form of Garuda and began to battle like warriors. This fierce battle was witnessed by all the devas. The gods continued attacking each other with powerful weapons. The desperate devas said, No one can lift even a blade of grass without the grace of the Supreme Being Shiva, who is the source of creation, protection and destruction. They went to Mount Kailas, worshipped Lord Ganesha, and then had Darshpan of Mahesa, who was enthroned with Uma and surrounded by the Sivaganas. They prostrated to Shiva, who blessed them and uttered sweet and gracious words. The manifestation of the effulgent Linga Mahadeva said, Children, blessings on you. It was I who ordained the quarrel between Brahma and Vishnu in order to bring about the manifestation of the effulgent Linga. He then appeared on the battlefield. Seeing that Brahma and Vishnu were about to destroy the whole creation by the most powerful weapons, Lord Shiva manifested before them as a glorious column of fire. Immediately, their weapons became powerless. Brahma and Vishnu wondered as to what this power was that could not be grasped by the senses. They decided to 192 discover its source and end. Vishnu took the form of a boar and decided to search for the bottom of the column, while Brahma took the form of a swan and flew upwards in search of the summit. Hari could not get to the bottom of the column and he returned tired and weary. Brahma, while flying upwards, saw a fragrant screw pine steadily coming down. The flower informed Brahma that it had fallen from Shiva's matted locks ages ago. It had been coming down ever since. It advised Brahma to give up the search for the summit. Brahma told the flower, O friend, please bear witness before Vishnu that I saw the summit of the column. He also added that it was not against Dharma to tell a lie in times of danger. Returning to Vishnu, Brahma produced the flower as witness and Vishnu was convinced. Vishnu thereupon prostrated before Brahma and worshipped him with all due honors. At that moment, Shiva appeared from within the column of fire to punish Brahma for his deceit. They realized their folly in trying to measure the infinite and begged for forgiveness. The Lord said, "Child Hari, though enamored of power, you spoke the truth. Therefore, you shall be honored by all mankind. Henceforth you shall have separate temples installed for your worship and festivals." He thus gave Vishnu a status equal to himself. 193-3. Arunachala blesses Brahma and Vishnu in order to subdue the pride of Brahma. Mahadeva created a fearsome form called Bhairava and bade it teach Brahma a lesson. Bhairava cut off the fifth head of Brahma. Seeing this pathetic sight, Vishnu prayed to Shiva, "O Lord, you yourself gave Brahma 5 heads as his characteristic feature. Therefore please forgive him and show him mercy." Shiva was pleased and prevented Bhairava from proceeding further. Shiva turned to Brahma and said, "Enamored of power, you uttered falsehood. Henceforth there shall be no temple, nor worship offered to you in this world." Brahma said, "Lord, show mercy on me. I consider my beheading as a sign of grace. O Lord, one who tolerates the misdeeds of thy children, kindly forgive." 194 My ignorance. The Lord said, "Because of your quarrel, the world is in darkness. Do undertake the burden of the world and sustain it. Although I have decreed that there may not be separate temples for you, I ordain that you shall be the presiding deity at Agnihotras and other yagnas." The Lord chided the screw pine flower for its perjury and said that it would no longer decorate his matted locks and shall not be offered to him in worship. Nevertheless, the merciful Lord declared that it would adorn his worshippers and his mount. Further, Brahma and Vishnu performed puja to their beloved Lord. With great devotion they offered garlands, ornaments, bracelets, crown, sandal paste, fruits, frankincense, camphor, cloth made of pure silk, white umbrella, fan etc. The Lord was surrounded by his devotees and truly it resembled an emperor's majestic court. The merciful Lord gave away, with his infinite blessings, the articles offered to him by the primal gods to his devotees present there. The extremely pleased Lord Shiva then graciously declared, "This auspicious day on which the devas and gods worship me, shall be celebrated as Sivaratri throughout the world. He who worships me on that day shall attain noble qualities like fortitude etc., essential for an aspirant hankering after liberation. Moreover, worshipping me on that day will yield the total merit of adoring me with pujas etc. throughout the year. Just as tidal waves in the ocean are generated by the full moon and new moon, all dharmas shall bear fruit on Sivaratri." 195 In the month of Margbasarsa, December to January, when the sun is in the zodiacal sign of Sagittarius, when the moon is full, and the star Aridra, Pleiades, is in ascension, I manifested as a column of effulgence to subdue your pride. Hence on this day whosoever installs a Sivalinga or my idol and worships me, he shall be more dear to me than Subramanya. This sacred place which served to kill your ego sense shall be considered as the most powerful spiritual center in the universe. I further decree that it shall yield all worldly pleasures. This column of effulgence which has no beginning or end shall become the nucleus of all forms and manners of worship. The very sight of this hill, worshipping by touching it and meditating on it shall surely lead one to liberation. This shall become famous on earth as Arunachala. There shall be many sacred tirthas. Mere abidance and death in this place would ensure freedom for even insects and animals from the vicious cycle of birth and death. All virtuous deeds like feeding of the poor, offering alms to the needy, celebrating marriages of the poor, performing temple festivals, yagnas and chanting of my name will yield infinite merit. Of all shrines sacred to me this is the foremost one. By merely thinking of Arunachala one's ego is rooted out. This place shall excel all other places in spiritual aura, glory, mystical power, wealth and in granting the ultimate human goal. The one who worships me here, shall successively abide near me, attain my form and finally merge in me. Nandikesvara continued. The Lord after blessing the now pious Brahma and Vishnu further addressed them. 196 Children. I alone am the formless form. I alone am Brahman. No other deity can be regarded thus and hence none else can be Isvara. I alone exist as effulgent linga, as idol and as absolute Brahman. This has been described earlier. It is a wonder that in your ignorance forgetting me, who am the Supreme Being, you fought in vain. I alone shine as the self in the inner core of every object in the universe. Every realized Jnani declares thus. Because of my love for you I am repeating again and again the quintessence of all Vedas which reveal Brahman so that you might understand its import. I am Brahman. All are my form. I am Isvara. I create, sustain, destroy, conceal, bless. All the fivefold karmas are mine alone. O Brahma and Vishnu. Being perfect and absolute I exist as Brahman. O children. Being omnipresent and dwelling in all, I am the self of all. All those who are ignorant of this knowledge are jivas. In order to make you realize my Brahmanhood, I exist as absolute form. Again in order to show you my Isvarahood I emerged from the effulgent column as Sivalinga. Now you realize my state is both the absolute form and the linga form. You may worship this column of effulgence as Sivalinga. This is verily my form. The worship of this alone is sufficient to attain my form. This glorious form of mine should be worshipped. I who transcend everything, shine as this linga. One who installs this linga and worships it will merge in me. 197 The five-fold divine karma of Lord Arunachala. Brahma and Vishnu asked the Lord to graciously describe the aspects of his five-fold karma, to which Shiva answered, I shall now narrate my divine play which is not to be revealed. My five-fold karmas are to create, to sustain, to destroy, to conceal and to bless. The creation is the beginning of samsara, its continuation is sustenance, and its merging in me in dormant form is destruction, to confuse it is concealment and its final liberation is due to my grace and blessing. If anyone declares that it is he who performs these karmas, he does not realize the truth. The five-fold karmas including that of liberating the jivas are my eternal divine play. The wise see all the five aspects in the five elements. That is, the earth forms the basis for creation, water sustains it, fire causes destruction, air 198 conceals it and absolute space brings about liberation. This is realized by the Jaya and Anis. I empowered you with two of my aspects, viz., that of creation and sustenance. And Rudra and Mahesvara were empowered to destroy and to conceal. I alone am entitled to bless my creation, show mercy and grace and finally liberate jivas. Children. After acquiring form, name, mount and karma, weapon etc., through my grace you forgot to meditate upon me. Hence you fell into the ocean of ignorance. If you had been aware of my existence, then, like Mahesvara, you would have remained without the ego sense. In order to get rid of your ego sense, meditate upon pranava, which is my first name. I shall initiate you now into that Mahamantra, the most sacred of all japas. This pranava originated from my face. It reveals my form that is verily my name. I am its meaning. Meditation upon the pranava is meditation on me. Every letter in pranava refers to my face. Pranava pervades all names and forms, Vedas and the Upanishads. This symbolizes the unification of Shiva and Shakti. From this emerged the Pankvaksvara. It is the source of all languages, the Gayatri mantra, the Vedas, and other mantras. While every mantra yields specific benefits, pranava alone can bestow all benefits on those who meditate on it. Further, after bestowing all earthly pleasures, this mantra alone leads to fiberation. Nandikesvara said, Isvara then initiated Brahma and Vishnu into the supreme pranava japa and blessed them. Brahma and 199 Vishnu offered themselves to the Lord as Garudakshina. They praised the Lord and made obeisance to him. Isvara then advised them, Children, meditate upon pranava into which I have initiated you. If you meditate on pranava when the star Arudra is in the ascent, it shall bestow countless blessings on you. Aspirants desirous of liberation should meditate upon the Sivalinga. The installation of Sivalinga is an easy means to attain mukti. Having blessed both Brahma and Vishnu thus, the Lord ever abided in their hearts. 200 The greatness of feeding at Arunachala Sanaka requested Brahma to enlighten them about the benefits derived from conducting Annadana, feeding of the poor, at Arunachala. Brahma replied, There is no good deed equal to Annadana in the three worlds. Annam, rice, is the basis of prana, life breath. Hence one who gives annam gives his prana. For this reason one who desires his own welfare should offer annam to the needy and the poor. If this is performed at Arunachala, he attains great merit and becomes the ruler of all the worlds. Neither Vishnu nor I can measure that merit. Even the giving of wealth and jewelry as charity cannot equal the merits obtained by Annadana at Arunachala. Once a king named Singadvajan, descendant of the famous Suryavamsa, ruler of the Dravida country, and 201 known for his valor and generosity, was giving away jewels and diamonds to learned Brahmins. In addition, he gifted away everything that he possessed. He however did not perform Annadana even once. When he died he was taken to the abode of Dev as. He was succeeded by his son, Chitrakethu, who excelled his father in might and valor. He too like his father gifted away land, jewels etc. But he too failed to perform Annadana. One day Singadvajan happened to meet the sage Narada, the foremost of rishis, in the celestial region. Sage Narada said, O king, the feeding of the poor, Annadana zero supersedes all other gifts made on earth. It bestows knowledge of the self, as the Supreme Lord dearly loves the one who performs Annadana. You donated everything but you did not perform Annadana. He who feeds the poor is offered nectar in the heavens. As requested by Singadvajan, Narada approached his son Chitrakethu on earth. Chitrakethu welcomed the sage. After duly accepting his respects, Narada informed Chitrakethu that although his father Singadvajan gifted away everything, he had not performed Annadana. He alone who had fed the poor and the needy shall receive ambrosia in heaven. Hence Chitraketu should perform Anodana so that his father shall receive the ambrosia. The king decided to perform Anodana. However, the king wanted to know as to where on this earth Anodana should be performed so that it shall bestow merits on him and his father. Narada informed him that the merit one obtained by feeding a lack of 202 people elsewhere cannot equal that of feeding one person in Kasi, and the merit gained by feeding just one poor Brahmin at Arunachala will outweigh that of feeding a crore at Kasi. Particularly if this was done on a Dwadasa day, i.e. 12th day counted from the day of new moon, full moon, it would be equal to the merit obtained by feeding the poor throughout the year. After listening to the wise words of sage Narada, Chitraketu performed Anodana every day at Arunachala. By this act of the sun, the father in the celestial region received nectar and in due course passed on to the various upper regions and finally merged in Shiva. Hence everyone should endeavor to perform Anodana, particularly at Arunachala, for it not only benefits the person who does it, but also bestows great spiritual merit upon his kith and kin. End of part 4.
Par V.
The greatness of the Deepam festival at Arunachala is found in Skanda Purana. Goddess Gauri requested sage Gauthama to kindly expound to her the greatness of the festival of light at Arunachala. Gauthama replied, Gauri, I shall describe to you the glory of that which liberates people from all sins and bestows all prosperity. In the month of Karthika, on the day of the star Kritika during Pradosbha, i.e. 13th day counting from the new moon, full moon, the fortunate ones who perform Gira Pradakshina are not born again. All karmas are destroyed on performance of Giri Pradakshina. It is customary to circumambulate the hill for a mandala or 40 days. One who is not able to do this may perform Giri Pradakshina at least for 11 days. If even this is not possible, then 206 should go round the hill on the day of the Deepam. This is equivalent to performing crores of yagnas. He who worships the Deepam lit atop the hill derives countless blessings. A person residing elsewhere may light lamps in front of any shrine of Shiva, atop his temple towers or on the peaks of other hills, and he will be blessed. Whatever may be the attitude of the devotee, the mere lighting of the lamp on this day with any type of oil available confers great merit on him. He who has darshban of this light on Arunachala hill acquires the merit of having performed great charity and of having bathed in the sacred rivers. Who can express in words the benefits enjoyed by the one who has darshban of the peak of Arunachala with the beacon light glowing? There is a story related to this festival. Long ago, King Vajrazan of Panchala, who was childless, was blessed with a son after having darshban of the Arunachala Deepam in the month of Kartika. The son was named Shatrajith. The prince grew up to be a lecherous man. He once eloped with the wife of a Vedic scholar and came to Tiruvannamalai and entered the temple of Arunachalaswara. It was the day of the festival of the beacon. The paramour made a wick out of her sari and lit the lamp with castor oil. At that moment the Vedic scholar came there and in a fit of rage stabbed his wife and the prince. And in turn the prince killed him. Since it was a gruesome murder committed in the sacred precincts of the temple, the three were about to be taken to hell by the messengers of Yama, Lord of Death. At that moment, 207 the messengers of Shiva intervened and claimed the prince and the woman as their own and took them to the abode of Shiva. Their blasphemous acts were condoned by Arunachala himself because the wife made a wick and the prince helped her to light the lamp for the Supreme Lord. But the Vedic scholar was puzzled, as he was held by the messengers of Yama. The prince, moved by the plight of the Vedic scholar, offered the vessel used for lighting the Kartika lamp to release the scholar. Immediately the Vedic scholar was liberated. Thus all the three, despite their misdeeds, were taken to the abode of Shiva, as the merit gained by the simple act of lighting a lamp on Kartika day in his temple outweighed their devilish acts. 208 Sri Arunachala Linga Pramanya Vakyani. In 1938, the authorities of Sri Arunachalaswara temple filed a lawsuit against the government regarding the 209 ownership of Sri Arunachala Hill, which was being claimed by the government as forestry department property. The temple authorities cited Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi as a witness, and therefore on the May 8, 1938, the court sent a commission to hear Sri Bhagavan's evidence. This incident is mentioned in talk number 492 of Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi compiled by Sri Munagala Venkatamaya. For the benefit of the court, Sri Bhagavan selected some passages from the Skanda Mahapurana and the Shiva Mahapurana to prove that Arunachala Hill is itself a linga, the very embodiment of Lord Shiva I. In all he selected 56 lines from the Skanda Mahapurana and 4 lines from the Shiva Mahapurana, and he copied these lines in a notebook too under the title Sri Arunachala Linga Pramanya Vakyani, statements giving authoritative proof that the Arunachala Hill is a lingo. On the basis of this evidence, the court decided that, since the hill is itself a linga, it must be considered to be the property of the temple. The court also chose to recommend that the temple authorities allow the forestry department to make use of part of the hill for forestry purposes. The following is an English translation of the lines selected by Sri Bhagavan. 1. The Skanda Mahapurana and Shiva Mahapurana are two of the 18 principal Puranas, and as such they are recognized as works of great sanctity and authority. Therefore, when deciding an issue which concerns Hindu law, a court should abide by the authoritative statements made in these two works. 2. This notebook contains the 292 verses about Arunachala which Sri Bhagavan copied from Upamanyu Shiva Bhakta Vilasa at the time of this lawsuit. 210 Skanda A Ahapurana A Aheshwara Kanda, Part 3 Arunachala Ahatmayam, 1st FIALF Pravardham, Chapter 1 Sanaka said to Brahma. 9. O treasure of grace, O foremost among devas, on earth there are Sivalingas which are divine, which are installed by human beings and Siddhibhyas, and which are composed of the 5 elements. 10. Tell me, which linga in Jambu Dvipa 3 is immaculate, Amala, divine, Divya, of unmutilatable glory 3-4, self-originated Iswayambhu, and effulgent, Tejasam? Brahma said. 22. Hear how in ancient days the wonderful and effulgent Shiva, who is full of motiveless grace, Avyaha Karuna, manifested with the name Arunadri.5. 23. First line. Narayana and I were born from him, Sadasiva, who transcends the universe. 3. Jambudvipa, the island of Jambu, is a name given to the landmass in which India is situated. 4. The reading copied by Sri Bhagavan in this selection is Aparichedya Vaibhavam, which means, of unmutilatable glory. An alternative reading is Arishadana Vaibhavam, which means, of a glory which destroys the enemies. If the latter reading is taken, the word, enemies, should be understood to mean the inner enemies, namely desire, anger, greed, delusion, pride and jealousy, together with their root, the ego. 5. Arunadri is a name of Arunachala. 211-24, first line. Once we two, who were self-born, began to argue with each other. 25. Seeing that the intensity with which we were fighting with each other, Iswara, Lord Shiva, who is the embodiment of grace, then thought. 6. 31, second line. He, Sadasiva, rose as a column of fire between us, who were fighting. Chapter 2 Brahma and Vishnu prayed to Lord Shiva. 31. Withdrawing your effulgence, abide as a motionless linga named Arunachala in order to bestow grace upon the world. Brahma said. 50, second line. He, Lord Shiva, assumed the nature of a motionless linga in the form of Arunachala. 5. 1. This indeed is the effulgent linga, Tejasam lingam, the sole cause of the universe, which is visible on earth and which is renowned as Arunadri. Chapter 4 Isvara said. 37. I truly abide here on earth in the form of an effulgence named Arunachala for bestowing liberation. 6. What Lord Shiva then thought is given in verses 26 to 30, which do not form part of this selection. A translation of these verses may be found in The Mountain Path, April 1970, page .66. 212-38. Since this hill removes the heap of sins from all the worlds, and since bondage Runa gets annihilated when one sees it, it is named Arunachala. 7. 40. In ancient days, when a fight arose between Brahma and Vishnu, who were both born from a part of me, I manifested myself in the form of an effulgence in order to remove their delusion. 43. At their further request I, who was in an effulgent form, became the motionless linga named Arunachala. Chapter 5 Devi said to Gautama. 24. Shiva told me, I abide on earth as Arunachala, and said that I should hear the glory of Arunachala from your lips. Gautama said. 42, second line, and 43, first line. In ancient days Brahma and Vishnu, who had come into existence from a part of the effulgence of Shiva, but who had become egoistic, fought with a desire to conquer each other. 43, second line, and 44. In order to subdue the pride of these two, who were fighting in this manner, Sadasiva, who was meditated upon by yogis, assumed the form of a column of fire without beginning. Middle or 7a Runa Achala means the hill, Achala, which makes bondage, Runa, non-existent. This verse has been rendered into Tamil by Sri Bhagavan as the fourth of the 7 verses on the greatness of Arunachala, which he adapted from the Puranas. The literal meaning of Sri Bhagavan's Tamil rendering, which is an elaboration upon the meaning of the original Sanskrit verse, is as follows. Since their nature is to bind all the worlds, the vicious actions, karmas, or bondage, Runa. This hill indeed is the effulgent Arunachala, the hill that destroys bondage, the refuge, by seeing which they, the karmas, vanish. 213 End, and stood between them illumining the 10 directions. 47. At their request, Devisa, Lord Shiva, the Lord of Devas, assumed the form of a motionless linga renowned as Arunadri, and he now shines in all the jivas. Chapter 6 Isvara said. 21, first line. I abide on earth in the form of Arunachala. 22, second line. That effulgent form 8 alone is called Arunachala. 23. This effulgent form, which is fiery, unmanifest and of the nature of limitless glory, has cooled down in order to protect the world. Chapter 7 The Devas said, 9. O Bhagavan, O Arunadrisa, O you who do good to the whole world. Although you are of the form of fire, shining in the world. Gautama said, 5. Having been prayed to by the Devas, Arunadrisa gradually cooled down and became perfectly tranquil as Arunachala in order to protect the world. 8. The reading copied in this selection by Sri Bhagavan is Taijasa Rupam, which means effulgent form. An alternative reading is Taijasa Ungam, which means effulgent linga. 214 Chapter 820, first line.
You, Lord Shiva, are seen on earth as the famous Sanadri 9. 17. First line. Nowhere else on earth have I seen even one lingo, in the form of a hill.
Chapter 13 Brahma said, 43. This is Sadasiva himself in the form of Arunachala, which is seen as the supreme effulgence, the cause of creation, sustenance and dissolution. 44. This effulgent linga is worshipped by all the devas. Because of that, the existence of this linga on earth, the Karmabhumi 10 is considered to possess more Dharma than any other world. Second half, Uttarardham, chapter Foejr Nandikesvara said, 12. Their god, Sambhu, the one who does what is good for the world, has himself assumed the form of a hill and abides as Arunachala. 14. This hill, which is Parameswara himself, is considered by Maharsbhas to be superior to Mem, Kailasa and Mandara. 9. Sanadri is a name of Arunachala. 10 Karma Bhumi is a name for this earth. 215-58, second line, and 59. Neither Meru nor Kailasa nor Mandara are equal to Arunadri, because they are abodes of Lord Shiva made up of huge rocks, whereas this, Arunachala, is Garissa 11 himself. Chapter 16 Shiva said, 27. For the welfare of the world, may my effulgent form, which is motionless and eternal, abide here forever with the name Arunadri. Chapter 20 Gautama said, 21, first line. This Arunadri is the hill of fire itself in a concealed form. Shiva Mahapurana Vidyaswara Samhita Chapter 9 Isvara said, 2-1. Since this linga rose up as a hill of fire, Analashala, it shall be renowned as Arunachala, the Red Hill. 41.
Second line and 42, first line.
Since this formless column, Nisbikala Stambam, which reveals my Brahmadva, my nature is Brahman, possesses the characteristics of a linga, it shall be my linga. 11 Garissa, the Lord of the Hill, i.e. Lord Shiva. 216 Sri Arunachala Puranam. Vignettes by J. J. Raman. The Arunachala Purana is an exquisite original composition in Tamil verse, by Seva Allappa Navalar, who lived about 300 years ago during the reign of the Tanjavur Nayaks. It enjoys the status of a Sthala Purana in Tamil on the story of Holy Arunachala, Tiruvannamalai.
Sthala Puranas record divine events, royal deeds and people's piety, all relating to a particular Sthala region.
The incident of Lord Shiva appearing as a column of light, thus baffling the forces claiming absolute doorship, is perhaps the primal, and eternal, act of grace, for it contains time itself in its womb. This story finds mention in some form or the other in Vedas and various Puranas. Specific references to Arunachala occur in various Sanskrit texts of antiquity. In the year 1938 a question arose as to 217 whether the holy Arunachala hill came under the jurisdiction of the Arunachala temple or the government. The temple authorities approached Sri Bhagavan and requested him to depose before a tribunal regarding this matter. It was in this context that the Maharshi gathered references to Arunachala from 5 sources in Sanskrit and copied out the 2,659 verses in his own hand. This Sanskrit collection, which may be called Arunachala Mahabhatmaya, was translated into Tamil prose and published by Sri Ramanasramam in 1957 under the same name. The 5 major Sanskrit sources are given below. 1. The Skanda Makapurana, one of the 18 great Puranas. It consists of 100,000 verses, each of 32 syllables. They are distributed among 6 Samhitas, of which Rudra, Sankara, Samhita alone has 30,000 verses. The Mabhaswara Khanda is one of the 12 Kbandas, divisions, of this Samhita. The third Khanda, part, of this Mabhaswara Khanda treats of Arunachala Mahima. This major text, rendered into Tamil verse by Seva Allappa Navalar, forms nearly the first half of Arunachala Purana. 1.
The greatness of the sacred spot, the contest between Brahma and Vishnu, the destruction of Daksha's sacrifice by an angry emanation from Shiva, the wedding of Shiva and Parvati, her playful sport and her Prayaspita by one. The latter portion of this Tamil Purana is translated from Linga Purana. The poet mentions this fact in the beginning of the latter portion. Bhagavan's court deposition also mentions that Linga Purana contains references to Arunachala. However, the Arunachala Mahatmayam, compiled by Bhagavan, does not include Linga Purana references. Presumably the Sanskrit text of the Purana was not available.
218 Penance, the destruction of Mahishasura, the merger of Parvati and Siva's left half, the greatness of Pratixbina of the hill, the grace accorded to kings Vajrangada Pandya, Balala Shera and Pradata, and the story of the civet cat are all narrated here. 2. Shiva Rabhasya, an Idabhasa nearly as long as the Mahabharata, contains 12 amsas. This Shiva Rabhasya is different from the work of the same name which is in Skanda Mahabharana. The 6th amsa, portion, of this contains the incomparable Ribu Gita. The 9th amsa contains references to the Saint Jananasambandha's hearing of the greatness of Arunachala when he camped near it. 3. The Vidyaswara Samhita of Shiva Mahabharana refers to the significance of worshipping Shiva alone as linga, in addition to the Vigrabha, idol, worship by which all gods are extolled. There are references to Lingodbhava and the 5 Kritiyas, activities, of Sadasiva, viz. Creation, maintenance, destruction, delusion and grace. 4. The Vidyasara Samhita of Shiva Mahabharana has a reference to the immense efficacy of feeding the poor in Arunachala. 5. The Kayasbhadra Kabanda of Skanda Upapurana, a minor Purana, speaks of incomparable benefits of observing vows during the month of Kartigai, and the attainment of mukti by anyone who has a glimpse of the holy Deepam on that day. The first of the above 5 and also a portion from Linga Purana were translated into Tamil verse by Seva Alapa Navalar a few hundred years ago during the reign of the Tanjore Nayaks. Running to 649 verses, it is known. 219 is Arunachala Puranam. It excels the original in many a place, especially where the poet revels in a description here or brings to light there a subtle point easily ignored by the reader in the original. In addition, the meter changes now and then, providing instantaneously the atmosphere and rhythm which blend with the events the poet seeks to convey through words. It is hoped that a reader not acquainted with Tamil would get a taste of the Puranam through these vignettes. After the verses offering prayer to Ganesha and Nataraja, the poet extols Arunachala as the fertile and sacred region where the suns and moons, the Bibhairavas, Vidyadharas, Devas, and those in charge of the 8 directions, the Nagas, great Tapasvins and Munis, and Brahmas and Vishnus gather in such proximity that there is no place left to prostrate, and so their wave-like cry of Hara, Hara, drowns even the roar of oceans. The spectacle of the youthful women of this place, tender-breasted, with pleasing mien and ornament on either ear, makes one wonder whether a shining, cool, ambrosial moon, their face, had arisen in daytime accompanied by 2 suns, 2-ear ornaments. Then follow verses praising Arunachalaswara, Shiva, Unnamalayaman, Parvati, Ganesha and Subramanya. These are followed by obeisance to the Tamil saints and finally to Nandi, Durga, Rishi Gautama and Chandikaswara. The poet then ridicules his own attempt at singing a few songs in the presence of eminent pandits skilled in composing songs pregnant with the 8. 220 Rasas 1. He likens his bravado to that of a mosquito trying to show a thing or two about flying, in the presence of the swan, mount of Brahma, and Garuda, mount of Vishnu.
The wise, however, would accept without ridicule his feeble attempts, because Arunachala is the theme of the songs, the same way as water by virtue of admixture with milk becomes elevated, or as a common thread becomes acceptable by virtue of being strung through fragrant flowers.
On the glory of the Arunachala Stala. Once, the sage Markandeya, leading a group of rishis, prayed to Nandikesvara to tell them about easy ways to cross the ocean of samsara and reach mukti.
The Lord deigns to reply that a dip in the holy Ganges at Kasi, Benares, done in full faith, are shedding one's mortal coils there. Being born in Tiruvarur Kamalalaya, a glimpse of the dance of the 3-eyed one at Chidambaram. A visit to Vridachalam where Vishnu offered worship to Shiva and received the chakra as boon. A pilgrimage to Kedarnath. Darsana of the Lord at Mallikarjuna whom Brahma worships prior to every creation. All these are ways to mukti.
Further, there is Kalahasti where Shiva stands as a hill in order that Vishnu, wearer of the fragrant Tulasi garland, and Lakshmi, resident to romance, valor, humor, compassion, ferocity, disgust, wonder and fear. 221 of the cool, honey-dripping lotus, may have his direct darsana from their holy abode on the Tirupati hill. Not only that, he also resides on the hill of Kalahasti as the linga worshipped of yore by the hunter Saint Kanapar. Further there are Kanchipuram of great renown, Kumbakonam, Sirkazi, Madurai, Ramaswaram and many more which lead to mukti by mere virtue of birth or death there, or by worship of the Lord therein. Hearing these words of Nandikesvara, Markandeya addressed him as follows. Visiting these diverse places and offering worship and engaging oneself in allied activities is quite a task even for the long-lived gods and city beings. What then can mortal men hope to gain in a lifespan brief as a flash of lightning? Worse still is the plight of animals and birds, and hopeless indeed the fate of trees and shrubs. I request you therefore to enlighten us about a place with power to grant release not only for trees, beasts and birds, but also for the old, the infirm and the lame among men for whom bathing in rivers, Pradaksbina, ritual worship and namaskara are out of the question. Please enlighten us about such a place in which an Jiva could be confident of Kaivalya, release. When thus the sage Markandeya, the vanquisher of death, worshipped with the other sages the lotus feet of Nandikesvara, the Lord raised his palm in benediction as if to say, I shall tell you. However, the very remembrance of Arunachala in his heart, prior to his uttering that word, struck Nandikesvara himself speechless in non-dual bliss. He sat still for long, with palms joined.
222 As if in prayer, hair standing on end all over the tingling body, with tear-filled eyes, and in a trance.
Then as if awakening, he sang forth, O Lord of Arunagiri, wearing the Ganges in your matted hair. O Lord of flaming eyes, whoever overwhelms us with your grace. He then proceeded to address the sages, listen. There is a place on earth which grants deliverance to any created being, moving or unmoving, by the mere remembrance of its sacred name. It has innumerable names. Some of these are Gauri Nagara, Teho Nagara, Arunachala, Sivaloka Nagara, Mukti Nagara, Jnana Nagara, Stalaswara, the supreme among sacred spots, Sudha Nagara, Dakshina Kailasa, Southern Kailasa, Sonagiri, and so on. Being the spiritual center of creation, it draws the gods, sages, and tapasvins, in short anyone who thinks of it, to itself. There is a hill there which stands in Krita Yuga as a hill of fire, in Treta as one of diamond, in Dvapara as a golden hill, and in Kali Yuga as a hill of stone. When even Vishnu as a boar and Brahma as a swan had to abandon their long-drawn search to find its beginning and end, can we hope to find a hill to equal Arunachala?
The sun, thirsting to sip from the springs on this hill, the water of which even the celestial Ganges considers holy, directs his chariothorses to leap over Arunachala daily.
When dense clouds of white surround its base, it appears as though Arunachala were a rising peak amidst a snow-clad Himalayas. To cap it all, the Deeparn which is lit on its summit during the cool month of Kartik seems like a prominent diamond on a grand crown worn by Mother Earth. Why, even 223 Himavan, the god of the mountains, was once crestfallen that he had to give his daughter Uma in marriage to a mendicant, the skull-carrying Shiva. But leaping with joy when informed of how Shiva had once silenced Brahma and Vishnu by assuming the form of a hill, Himavan exclaimed with obvious relief, how wonderful to know that our son-in-law to be belongs to our race after all. Reiterating the greatness of Arunachala, Nandikesvara tells the assembled sages that even murderers, those of easy virtue, or the disabled and those that live far away, are assured of mukti if they but remember well the holy Arunachala once.
The place is Sivaloka itself, and its every pebble the holy linga, every tree and shrub there is a wish-fulfilling kalpaka tree, every spring therein is the holy Ganges issuing forth from the matted tress of Shiva. To eat a morsel there is to partake of the amrta of gods, a mere perambulation of it is Pradaxpina of earth itself.
Any sound uttered therein is to utter Sruti profound. Need we add that even to sleep there is to be in Samadhi supreme? Abandon therefore any possibility of finding an equivalent to Arunachala. Saying these words of praise, Nandikesvara remained still, where seated, immersed in bliss. The sages prostrated again and again to the Lord, themselves lost in it. Then Markandeya, son of Merkandu, came forward and begged the Lord to narrate to them all how the Arunachala hill came to be formed. Nandi was pleased to say, if a wretch should contemplate committing the Panchapadakas, the 5 sins of murder, theft, falsehood, 224 intoxication, and abuse of Guru, 3 in that sacred place, he would purely by virtue of his remembrance of Arunachala be saved somehow, and led to liberation. Such is the undisputed sanction of the sacred scriptures. Would this supreme grace be then withheld from those devoted, who seek to hear more and more about the holy hill? The benefits are assured for my own self too. In what follows, Nandi describes involution of samsara as the process of merger of Brahma into Vishnu, into Rudra, into Mahaswara, into Sadashiva.
This entity in turn relapses into Bindu, that into Nada, and finally into Sakti, which is awareness inseparable from being, called Supreme Shiva, Parama Shiva, Srispiti Krama. The process of evolution appears in reverse, due to the very nature of Supreme Being.
During such an evolution, when Brahma appeared, he held in mind the idea of many. Almost instantaneously the Prajapatis, progenitors of races, came into being. Through them arrived in ordered succession the races of Adityas, gods, Daityas, Rakshasas, and Danavas, the demonic races of Asuras, the intermediate beings called Kalakyas, Gandharvas and nymphs, Garudas, Panis, serpents, Kanaras, and anthropoids, and the great races of Risbas and humans. All this creation taking place by his mere contemplation of it, was sufficient to turn Brahma's many heads, puffed up with the pride of omnipotence that 3 murder, to ascribe birth to oneself.
Theft. A legal appropriation of false individuality.
Falsehood. To believe, I am this limited, evolving body-mind. Intoxication. Self in search of happiness and self-realization. Abuse of Guru. Not surrendering individuality while prostrating to Shiva or self. 225 seemed to be his. He decided to put Vishnu in his place once and for all. This was undoubtedly an oft-repeated occurrence throughout the cycles of creation. Forgetfulness of one's source has a lot to do with this, surely. 4. There are other accounts of a nascent Brahma venturing out of the lotus in which he found himself. After climbing over many a row of petals and then sliding a while down its seemingly endless stalk, he soon lost courage. Vishnu, from whose navel the divine lotus grew in the first place, restores Brahma to his abode, with full paternal concern. It was a very grateful Brahma who went ahead with creation on that occasion. But things were obviously very different now.
Deciding to take matters into his own multiple hands, Brahma confronted Vishnu, as the latter lay on his bed of snake, and taunted him thus: "It is very clear to me now, that I am the cause of all this creation that is taking place.
So abandon any idea you may have that you are my parent. If it were not for my act of creation, you would be unemployed." Useless. Vishnu spoke out, "My dear son. It does not befit you to talk disrespectfully to your parent." Brahma, inflamed, let forth much abuse. "Enough of this. Give up right away the hallucination that you are the great preserver. Otherwise I shall create another one and entrust him with your job." When Vishnu replied rather casually as if tolerating an errant junior, Brahma blew up in anger. "Oh ho. So you seem to have forgotten that the wonderful ocean on which you reside is merely the accumulated sweat of my toils. Better hide yourself in it before the 226 cosmic powers that I might well create surround you and destroy you."
By such foolish ignorance you incurred the wrath of the great Rishi Bhrigu, and by his curse had to take repeated births.
Ingrate, have you forgotten that all this only added to my work? Did I not have to create for the sake of every avatar of yours, a body that suited you? Look at my hands blackened by all that needless toil. Hearing these words, Vishnu replied that, for one born of a mere lotus which had sprung from his navel, Brahma was making too much noise. Brahma then let loose another torrent of scorn. "O Vishnu! Have you forgotten that you sprang from a mere pillar once? A worse beginning if you ask me. Pray tell me, was that pillar your father or was it your mother?"
I shall accept you as my parent if you have no hesitation in accepting the inert pillar to be your parent.
Even if I do concede that you are my father, why should I dance to your tune? Don't you know that fire which springs from rubbing bamboo sticks burns up the parent sticks? So behave yourself lest I should destroy you." Hearing these wicked words, Vishnu felt as if red-hot spears had been driven through his ears. With mounting anger he laughed, spewing smoke, and after some thought replied, "Foolish fellow. You have neither bothered to inquire about your origin, nor shown inclination to accept my navel as your mother. Perhaps you assumed that as your parent I would tolerate any amount of mischief from a toddler like you. Beware. There is a limit to everything. The Asuras Madhu and Kaitaba opposed me. 227 and, though they were born of my body sweat, I destroyed them. One cannot show mercy even if it be one's own child that did wrong. Does anyone shy from surgically removing a painful boil on one's own body? It is indeed comic that you consider yourself to be at the head of all creation, when you are unable to fashion for yourself a head and replace it, the fifth head, once plucked by Shiva. Is it with these unenviable credentials that you set about creating this world, which after all is held aloft by Adisha, my servant? And have you forgotten so soon that you squealed for help when an Asura ran away with the Vedas, and it was I who came to your rescue? I took the form of a fish then, out of my own sweet will.
Innumerable have been the times when I have rushed to your succor by routing the Danavas whenever they tormented you.
One who has planted a tree is reluctant to uproot it even if it turns out to be a poisonous one. Though I hesitate on account of your being my son, I shall have to punish you if you persist in your invective. Can fire subside by adding fuel to it?
The exchange of hot words culminated soon in each drumming on his own chest, and the two circling each other like ferocious wrestlers, now advancing, now retreating, now leaping to the ground, now getting close, and goring each other with gimlet eyes aflame with anger.
All of creation went haywire. Mountains crumbled to powder, galaxies blew up in explosion, hot suns and cool moons disappeared en masse. Rivers turned dry in a trice, stars and nebulae scattered like confetti, and the guardians of the 228 dimensions, Ashtadikpalakas, feared the worst. Even the gods, who were of steady gaze, found themselves wincing, shocked by this sudden cataclysm. The fight for supremacy took a higher pitch, with the combatants delivering blows to each other in the cosmic arena. Punching each other, lifting the fallen one by his thighs and twirling him rapidly before throwing him far and high, the two, near equals, kept switching roles of victor and vanquished. The rise and fall of the dark-hued Vishnu and bright-hued Brahma looked like night following day amidst a pugilistic pell-mell.
The sequel as well. The sudden appearance of a blazing column of light growing beyond the 7 planes below and the 7 above. The search for its limits by the proud pair, which reminds one of an ignorant child reaching out to grasp the moon reflected in the water. Brahma's lie. The eventual humbling of the two by the appearance of Shiva from the effulgence. His command proscribing all worship of Brahma on earth, and his appeasement by the contrite couple, who sing his praise.
On the holy descent of the Divine Mother, Nandikesvara continued. Listen, O Markandeya.
I shall tell you how the Divine Mother, Sati, came to be born as Parvati, daughter of Himavan, the king of hills, and how she was wedded to Shiva, the non-dual one, and how she came to be born on earth.
229 The episode of Sati. Daksha, the progenitor born of Brahma's right thumb, was never too happy about the skull-carrying Shiva whom fate had decreed to be his son-in-law. He bore a grudge ever since the latter had paid him, his father-in-law, no special attention and respect in an august assembly where he had been Siva's guest. Soon he organized a Brahmaspati Savana sacrifice, inviting all the 12, the 11, the 8, and the 7 and also the serpents, Kanaras, Yaksbas and Siddhibhas, and a host of sages. Vishnu and Brahma were there with their consorts. Behold, my lord Shiva and Sati, being uninvited, were absent. When Sati expressed to Shiva her wish to attend her father's great yaga, sacrifice, the Lord replied that they had not been invited. But knowing well what was to follow, he smiled teasingly and said, "Go yourself, and come back soon." She reached her parents' place. Her warm embrace of her mother Asikni was rebuffed. Her misguided father uttered words mean and mordant when she prostrated before him. Stung to the quick, Sati stormed out of the place but not before cursing the precincts and the participants to a moribund ravage.
Elsewhere, the crescent moon on the matted locks of the one, ever her other half, began to spew out heat, and out of his angered third eye emanated a fierce form that sent shock waves through space.
Dark as a cloud, wearing an emerald crown, like a modal Meru mountain, mouthing thunder and spouting virulence, Virabhadra appeared 4 Adityas, Rudras, directions, Rishis, respectively. 230 with bloating body and twitching eyebrows before Shiva, saying, "Command, command, command, my lord." Bidden to rout a rascally ritual, Virabhadra sped thither, the mighty hordes, the Shiva Ganas, close on his heels. With the hordes holding for him umbrellas pearl-studded, Virabhadra went forth on a 100-bull elephant-drawn chariot amidst the Ganas blowing war calls from crores of conchas. Furious at the considerable slight to their lord, the Ganas entered the Yagasala. The lords of the 8 directions clashed with the irrepressible invaders. The field was but a blur of sword, spear, mace and guided missiles. With the leisurely ease of Ammanai, a woman's parlor game, the Ganas made mincemeat of the Devas and their celestial vehicles. There was a tense moment when 8 of the Buddhas fell and the rest stood in shock, but Virabhadra cast 8 projectiles which drank the lifeblood of some gods and wounded the rest. The rider of the cloud hopped off it in haste and took flight, changing himself into a cuckoo. In shame Nirati, Varuna, Vayu, Kubera and Isana showed a clean pair of heels. Yama, lord of death, died. Agni, lord of the leaping flames, had his 7 hands severed like the round of births by mere remembrance of Arunahala. Painlessly cutting away the ears of Milady's mother with his laser like Vajra, Virabhadra confronted Daksha who rushed at him drunk with sacrificial soma and wielding an uprooted pillar. It was a terrible scene, for the Yajamana, the head of the Yaga, was himself beheaded. In a trice the head went rolling, and instantly, an impatient Gana went and gobbled it up. 231 Virabhadra's work continued. His wielded trident left a trail of death where it went. The crowds of Rudras, Murits, Vasus and the groups of Rishis hiding behind bushes or on trees, none, neither god nor goddess was spared. Virabhadra and the Ganas routed the ritual and the ritualists, putting to flight divinities who had the temerity to attend a sacrifice to which their lord, Shiva, was not welcome. Noticing that Brahma kept creating more gods, Virabhadra cut off his hands, and impaled with the trident the heads of the 10 gods that Brahma, crippled in hands, had created through mind. That done, he took on Vishnu. What follows may strike some devotees as irreverent. But we should not forget that the Ruranas are united in their intent. That, however exalted a power one may be, there is a price to pay if ego emerges. And so, when Vishnu found his volley of arrows foiled by Virabhadra, he threw a sword which the latter broke with an arrow that sped on to kill Garuda. With a face further darkened by the turn of events, Vishnu 5 hurled the space-warping discus. Swifter than light, deadlier than death, it sped toward Virabhadra and took refuge at his feet. Had not Vishnu once offered worship of 1,000 choice flowers to Shiva, and at the very end of it, finding himself short of a flower, readily offered his own lotus eye? Had not Shiva presented him then with this chakra, discus? What wonder then? Vishnu vanished, reappearing as a boar, then a lion and 5 as Krishna, he is already dark. 232 So on. Virabhadra's weapons proving invincible, he hid himself as a fish deep in the ocean's bowels. He who had once swallowed the earth six once again did it, hiding in its bowels. When Shiva heard of all that had happened through Yerbhadra, his anger was quenched. The lesson taught, he revived all who had fallen prey to his wrath, and restored each to his status quo ante bellum. What of Daksha and Sati? He who begot Sati got a goat for his head. Sati, unable to bear the shame of being called daughter of the one who insulted her lord, had already taken her life by her yogic will.
The episode of Parvati. Sati was reborn as the lovely child of Himavan, lord of the Himalayas, and Meena, in answer to their tapas and prayer for a daughter who would marry none other than Shiva.
How can I describe greatness of the tapas of Himavan and Meena which brought forth Sakti? The Sakti which, while ever remaining as para united with Shiva, also springs forth as creative energy apara, giving birth to the Sirsine duo and the knowledgeable action, Jnana Isisiva Kriya Sakti, trio. The Sakti from which pure Maya gives birth to the potential and the manifest, the implicate and the explicate, the nada and the bindu.
The Sakti, the primal seed from which sprout powers of cosmic management called Brahma, Vishnu and Rudra.
Oh. The tapas of Himavan and Meena to have given birth to 6a Leela of Krishna. 233 The womb of all creation before and after. Lovelier by the day the lass grew, like the waxing moon, and like the sugarcane grown fondly by Kama, Cupid, for enticing the three-eyed one some day. Narada, knower of arts, sciences and the Vedas, came there one day and informed Himavan that from certain marks that he had noticed in lovely Uma, it was certain that she would soon develop a half-eye on her forehead, and a trident in one of her hands. The breast on that side would gradually disappear. Half her emerald green body would turn coral red, and half her lovely hair would turn matted. Himavan, who was overjoyed to infer from this that Uma was indeed the bride to be of Shiva, was further elated when informed that Shiva, the eternal celibate, was for some mysterious reason performing tapas very near Himavan's abode. We however know that Shiva, somewhat dejected with the loss of Sati, took to a life of seclusion and meditation. Offering his obeisance to Shiva, Himavan bade Uma, assisted by her friends, to remain there with the Lord and serve him with devotion. There were other developments elsewhere. The demon Taraka, empowered by tapas, was making a hell of heaven. A shocked Brahma found himself facing a high-level team that looked quite downcast. Deprived of their godly crowns, there they stood. Indra with his broken vajra, Isana with his blunted hatchet, Yama with his trident twisted, and so on. Taraka was all that they could stutter in reply to Brahma's query regarding the cause of their ignominy. Seized of the horrible threat from Tarakasura to the gods, Brahma advised, abandon any. 234 Hope of saving the situation through individual efforts. This demon Taraka had got the boon that he could be defeated only by a son born to Shiva the eternal recluse. Rather clever of him. So busy yourselves conjuring up ways to consummate the marriage of Shailaja, hill-born Parvati, with the celibate. Returning to Amaravati, Indra had only to think of Manmata, Cupid, when he appeared before him asking, whose tapas do you want disturbed? Which damsel do you want stricken with my arrows? Why this sorrow-laden face? Much depended on what Mara, Cupid, could do. Reenacting the characteristic drama of newfound intimacy in times of distress, Indra embraced his friend Manmata with both his arms, and according him an honored seat, explained to him the role Mara had to play in enticing Chandramauli from his austerities. Convinced that this was nothing short of asking for the moon, Manmata explained, who can disturb the tapas of the one who is ever beyond epistemology, means of knowledge, in the form of sensation, pratyaksha smiley face, mentation, anumana, inference, or citation, sruti. By the very sanidhi, proximity, of the consummate virgin and the faultless celibate, creation emerges, stays, and merges, like thought forms in mind. Though he is described as tamasic, his svarupa, essential form, is fire. He cannot be framed by form, nor can he, as formless, be circumscribed. Worse still, I could do my job only if I knew for sure that my target was a male or 7 Shiva with the moon in his matted locks. 235 That it was a female. Shiva is neither male, nor female, nor both. I am sorry. It's beyond me to budge the bull rider. Realizing that the situation called for drastic measures, Indra got up, and launched into heady adulation of Ananga's aid prowess. Have you forgotten that it was by your amorous ammunition that Vishnu got Lakshmi seated in his breast, and Saraswati took residence on Brahma's tongue? Why? Was it not due to your virile greatness that even I, Indra, came to acquire 1,000 eyes? 9 Now clasping Kama's arm with both his hands, Vajrabahu 10 shot his bolt. Please go for my sake. Success with Shiva spells birth of Skanda. And that means life again for all devas. It is the supreme moment for you. Please do not refuse. Grant me this one boon. Thus thoroughly seduced, Kama sped to Kailas to move the immovable. armed with bow made of sugarcane strung with a row of bumblebees serving as bowstring, and his quiver of just 5 arrows tipped with 5 fragrances, Mara marched on. Riding with his consort Ratty, on southern breeze that served as his fish-flagged chariot, and with indulgent Spring as his prime minister, Kama sped on. While the moon wove its delicate web of lover's light, the cuckoos sang atop trees flush with flowers, and amidst the buzz of bumblebees, emanating as calls to war from conch like white jasmines, and with flowers being strewn about in honey-dripping flood all along the road, the female aide Kama, the bodiless, called so here in tragic anticipation. 9 Indra's caper with Ahalya earned him this curse from Gautama Rishi. 10 Indra, wielder of the Vajra, thunderbolt. 236 warriors of Kama, capable of melding even iron, copper and stone with their sweet talk, ambled on, holding in their hands deadly harps that played on heartstrings. The romantic night was Ananga's army of dark elephants. The twinkling stars were the silvery decorations on the faces and trunks of the elephants, and crimson suns set the bindi dot adorning their foreheads. Parrots were the cavalry, while warriors, dainty damsels with dowdy breasts and coral lips sauntered on swishing their sword-sharp eyes. Fearing a direct confrontation, Kama hid himself out of view of the serenely seated figure of Shiva and began to wonder what to do. He saw Uma approaching, and was suddenly filled with renewed confidence in having found a female accomplice. What was a crisis was now a cakewalk. As he bent his sugarcane bow, the poet makes a delightful play on words here, Kama thought, even if this bow of the form of sugarcane, Karumbaruvam, Karumbu plus Aruvam, 11 be broken in the bargain, why should I worry? Have I not the black brows, Karumbaruvam, Karam plus Baruvam, of Uma, to stand in as 2 more brows? What followed this is history. As Kama released the arrows, he was burnt to ashes by a ray from Siva's third eye. Later, leaving that spot, Shiva returned to Kailas and calling the sages to his side told them that Parvati was engaged in long tapas for gaining him as her husband, and so he instructed them to go to Himavan and inform 11 Baruvam, also pronounced as Paruvam, is the Tamil for the Sanskrit Bruva, brow. 237 him that Shiva was happy to seek her hand in marriage. Himavan and his family were thrilled to hear of this. The auspicious date for the supreme alliance was fixed and communicated back to the Lord. Soon invitations were dispatched to the near and dear, the 7 kinds of hills, the 7 oceans, devas, citybes and rishis. Soon thereafter the oceans, the garland-like meandering rivers, the Blue Mountain, Nilgiris, and other ranges, and citybes and munis and devas began to arrive. The 8 directions on earth were jammed with chariots and flags. The free space above was a packed parking lot for aerial limousines. The streets were filled with garlands, festoons, and stumps of large leaf plantains and areca palms planted as arches over doorways. The fragrance of the civet paste obtained from the hills charmed the environs. The pomp and circumstance shamed Vishnu's Vaikuntha, Brahmaloka, Kubera's Alagapuri and Indra's Amaravati put together. The ladies of the hills bathed the bride in the waters from Ganga. Her slim waist weighted with silken dresses, Uma was decorated with ornaments of pearl and gem and garlands of fragrant flower, and adorned with the Kasturi Tilaka on her forehead. Shiva, habitual wearer of the sacred ash, who scorched to ashes the flower-wielding Smara, Kama, now himself was bedecked with flowers from the divine Kalpaka tree.
Aided by Brahma and others, who clothed him in habits studded with diamonds, Shiva for once forsook from his neck and arms the fearsome snakes that concealed lustrous diamonds in their heads, Ma Mani Pp Anagal Neki, and put on necklets and 238 armlets of 9 gems Ma Mani Pp Anagal Puda. Then sporting a brilliant bejeweled crown that seemed as if the heavenly stars had all gathered at his tresses to be near their master the crescent moon, and wearing kandalas, large rings, that made it seem as if the sun and moon of his eyes had taken residence just below his ears, the resplendent bridge groom mounted the Rishaba, bull. When Vishnu, the best man, came near and uttered words of praise, the Lord lovingly spoke to him. When Brahma, Lord of the lotus bloom, approached in respectful obeisance, he was greeted with a nod of the crown, that contained the head of the infinite. When Indra next came forward singing a paean of praise, Shiva the plenum of stillness bestowed on him a special smile. The other gods followed, paying their obeisance. Had the crescent moon, nourished by the Ganges hidden in his tresses, grown so large as to become the wide, white canopy held aloft above him? Were the 2 chowries, whisk fans waved by royal attendants, the white spray of the Ganges and the moon? As the Lord proceeded now towards Kailas, Vishnu, Lord of Lakshmi, followed with the beetle bag. Indra, king of the celestial Kalpaka, carried the tambula vessel to receive the red remains. Brahma fanned, while Narada's sweet strains and the drone of his divine tambura floated afar. Yama was just a wee bit behind bringing the wooden sandals, while Vayu was busy burning sambrani, incense of fragrant benzoin, and Isana duly carried in velvet the regal sword. While Saraswati and Lakshmi sprinkled holy rose water on all the guests, the 239 divine damsels bore bags holding rare garments, the Naga nymphs came carrying apparel sewn with all sorts of gems, and the Kinnaras playing on their lutes, and the Vidyadharas singing in chorus, Palandu, Palandu, long live, and the clang of cast bells, the rhythm of diverse drums, the crash of cymbals and solemn siren of conch was a sun et lumiere truly for the gods.
As the Lord rode through the city of Hamavan, the women along the streets feasted their eyes on the one who would marry their princess. Some said, "Ah, Uma's tapas has not been in vain." Some craned curious necks wondering, which is the eye of fury which burned up Cupid? Some others pronounced, all the archery of Ananga, is to no purpose really, for all of creation remained placid to his passion as long as Shiva remained in yoga. On the other hand, even with Kama no more, all are now aquiver with ardor merely by the Pinakan 12, Shiva, bestirring himself to desire. Surely it is he who is the primal cause of pining passion. Hamavan leading his mountainous family came forth and welcomed the groom and his swelling crowds amidst much bonhomie and mutual embrace.
With Brahma giving him a helping hand, the immeasurable, beyond beginning and end, alighted from the bull mount.
The waving of saffron water and light followed. Then, resting his right hand on both hands of the best man, Vishnu, the Lord proceeded to the hall of marriage, and took the groom's seat before the glowing fire. With their ample breasts announcing their origins, 12-wielder of the trident, Pinaka.
240 The maidens of the mountains conducted Kali, Parvati the black beauty, the embodiment of grace, as if she were a delicate flower, to the right side of her consort.
As the moment of Muhurta neared, Brahma, progenitor of the Vedas, now as the chief priest, voiced them once again. The ritual came to a close when the primal one offered puffed rice to the ghee-fed flames, and then, chanting the crucial mantras, circumambulated the fire, his own essence, holding the hand of the Virgin, mother of the seven worlds. When the gods gathered to pay their obeisance to the newly married, the Lord acquiesced to their combined entreaty, and, to the delight of Rati, resurrected Kama from the ashes, now Ananga, bodiless. The marriage over, the gods dispersed, each returning to his or her station in the cosmic scheme. Ganesa and Subramania were born soon thereafter, and while the gods, who had suffered long enough, watched in suspense, Subramania waged war with the redoubtable Tarakasura and destroyed him with his valiant veil, spear. On the blindfolding OL the Lord, the newlyweds would have tiffs, then make up, garland each other, listen to their praises sung by the Risbas, play on the veena, dally in spirited sport or pastime in games, winning and losing them to one another. On one such occasion Parvati asked her lord, "Won't you tell me what the moon and sun are?" He replied, "Dear lass of 241 lush lips, the two lights are but my eyes." Thinking that he was teasing her, the mother of Kartikeya went behind him and, without any warning, closed his eyes. The momentary closure meant eons of darkness for the gods. All of embodied life behaved as if born blind. Order and organization broke down in the absence of the I-energy. In what was a trice for him, the Lord opened the third eye on his uncovered forehead. The destroyer had turned life-giver. As Gauri drew her hands back, the three eyes shone like the three Vedic fires, Daksbina, Gaurapadya and Abhavaniya, powering the unplanned power cut. When Parvati begged for forgiveness, Shiva replied, "You are ever taintless and beyond karma. However, if you desire to set an example of purification, go to Kanchi, which is greater than Kasi, Avanti, Dwaraka and Mathura."
Narrations of the Holy Mother's tapas at various places are scattered throughout the Puranas.
Was the Lord now advising her of the superiority of Kanchi over those places of her earlier visits? What follows is well known. From Kasi Parvati reaches Kanchi, makes a sand linga by the Kampa river and worships it day and night. The Lord wills a flood in order to test her devotion. She embraces the linga in protection, unmindful of her own fate in the spate. Pleased, the Lord appears before her, with his shoulders bearing the marks of the Pandya king's cane 13, his feet the marks of crowns of countless gods, his chest, embraced recently, 13 see Tiruvilayadal Puranam. 242 bearing the mark and sandal scent of Parvati's breasts and bangles. She requests for the ultimate boon of Idapaham, of being his left half. The ultimate asking, the Advitya. The ultimate, giving, said, purified in Kanchi, proceed now southward to holy Tiruvannamalai. Resident as the primal linga contracted to a hill, there I shall grant this boon. Parvati, wise after the event, said, following your advice I came to Kanchi, superior to Kasi. And now you mention Arunachala. Please let me know right away if more places exist. The Lord gave her his word that the Teolinga, Arunachala, is the terminus. En route to Arunachala from Kanchi, Parvati encamped for the night at Sayar, the sun's river.
It was here that Lord Subramania got a hut made of plantain trees for her rest, and the following morning enabled with a thundering arrow, a river of pure water to flow by for her ablutions. Passing then through paddy fields, Parvati reached Tiruvannamalai.
After obeisance to the Lord at the temple to the east, she began to look for a spot to pursue tapas. At the nearby Pavaja Kunru, Coral Hillock, a spur of Arunachala hill, she met the Risbas assembled at the sage Gautama's Asbrahma, who sang the praise of Mother Parvati. Bringing forth the eternal Shiva from within you, you appear then within him as the animating Sakti. With this, thy mysterious nature, of Shiva within Shiva, you procreate the multiple Jivas. Is there anyone capable of finding out your nature which forever remains non-dual? 243. If the supreme reality of Shiva becomes Maheswara, Rudra, Brahma and Vishnu, you become simultaneously the Saktis known as Maheshwari, Rudri, Saraswati and Lakshmi. Other than these, should he assume any other, you become correspondingly. Is there anyone capable of knowing you? When the Munis and Rishis were praising Parvati thus, Gautama arrived, and coming near her with hands raised above his head in supplication, prostrated before her lotus-like feet.
Gautama, lofty in devotion, then addressed her to her delight, what immense good have I done that thy divine feet, that even Brahma, the firstborn, and the Asvediya Dikpalas, the sentinels of the 8 quarters cannot hope to place on their heads bowed low, should be gracing this most humble abode of mine.
Hearing this, Parvati, gentle as a creeper, said, should need arise I shall go to the spear-wielder, Subramania, or the tusker, Ganesa, to remove my want. Or else I shall come to you, dear son, who have such love for me. She then related in detail all that had taken place till then during her penance on earth. Hearing the mother of all speak thus, Gautama, who had, by a curse, bestowed on Indra, doer of 100 yagas, in times of yore 1,000 eyes, spoke as follows. This abode, the primal one, is known as the abode supreme and a sacred par excellence. One good deed done here multiplies manifold of itself. Therefore do thou conduct ardent penance here. Thy Lord will then surely.
244 Come on his bull mount and reabsorb you as his left half. Quote.
O Mother, even Vishnu, Brahma, the Vasus, Indra, and a host of Munis had in days gone by, made their dwelling here and completed the penance of solitude. The place is right and the time auspicious. Thy penance is thus assured of success. The sage Gautama told her, this holy place is ideally wooded for a radius of 2 yojanas, 18 miles, and teems with life and life-giving streams. The distraction of crowds of gods and citybes that frequent this hill for worship has made me take shelter in the thick but secluded forest of this spur.
Therefore do you too choose a spot nearby.
The Purana indicates clearly that Gautama's Asbrahma was at Pavaja Kunru to the east and that Parvati did tapas near his Asbrahma.
This is also consistent with later events. She kills the demon and cleanses herself at the Khadgatirtha which lies near the spur. She then begins the Pradakshina of the hill from the east, and completes it there.
Then the Mother Supreme, the womb of all creation said, indeed I shall do tapas here and gain my end. 1414 For an incident highlighting Sri Ramana's bhava while reciting the above verses in Tamil, see Guru Ramana, S.S. Cohen's thrilling diary entry dated June 17, 1948. 245 On the episode of obtaining Idapaham, merger. Indeed the Aranyakas, forests, are the fountain springs germinating and sustaining all that is best in Vedic wisdom and life. The light of the Upanishad was communicated under the shade of the silent tree.
Parvati began her tapas in the forest of Tiruvannamalai, then home to nature's wild splendor.
Could such magnificence escape the malefic marauder? The troops of the demon king Mahishasura came from afar to capture the wild elephants, and to hunt for flesh and fancy the wild boar, bison, leopard and doe which roamed free in the forest, alert and aware. Mahisha's lusty letter to Parvati led to her warning him, this is the residence of those committed to the ideal of Dharma.
Those who misuse their advantage to evil ends here, will lose their ease and die diseased, all their strength and authority wiped out.
Do not incite Lord Arunachala, fiery by nature, towards anger, lest you should be destroyed. Beware. The events that followed are well known and we shall confine ourselves to certain interesting aspects alone. In the battle that ensued, Mahisha, the buffalo-headed demon, proved redoubtable to Durga, the militant emanation from Parvati. When decapitated, the buffalo took the form of a mad elephant. Beheaded, he went on successively taking the forms of a horse, of darkness and even appeared before her as Brahma and Vishnu. Then Durga prayed to Uma in her heart. The Supreme directed 246 her to continue till the Asura assumed his original buffalo form. She was then to cut off his head and hold it under her foot. Mahisha met his end thus. Sri Ramana too prays in his Arunach Balapadikam, verse 7, resident as I am in the non-dual heart, who is it that comes out? Manifest thyself, O Arunachala. place thy broad feet on his head and subdue him. Again, in 40 verses, he declares Mahisha's secret. It arises dependent and feeding on form. It abandons one form for another. When inquired into its original form, it is no more. Such is the formless ego demon. After slaying Mahisha, Parvati went in Pradakshina of the holy hill. Halfway, near the west, the Lord gave Darshban on his bull mount. Her going round the hill was like Parvati's earlier circumambulation of the sacred Agni on the day of her marriage. As she neared the east completing her Pradakshina, the Lord absorbed her as his left half. On the Pradakshina of the holy hill, Prada equals giver of boons, Ksbi equals destroyer of karma, Na, giver of jnana. Also, Pradakshina equals going around with center kept to the right. The holy Arunachala is the primal, Adi Linga. The path around its base is the sacred Yoni. Pradakshina of the hill is therefore Pradakshina of the source of all lingas. So one goes round keeping to the left edge of the path. A mere step taken confers the benefit of a yaga, sacrifice, 2 steps, the fruit of Rajasuya yaga, and 3 that of Asvamedha yaga. Going round the hill one gains in health and vigor. The hill abounds in rare 247 herbs sought by Siddha herbalists. The breeze carries the salubrious wafts from these Siddha herbs to the one doing the holy round. The dust from the feet of such a person, carried and deposited in towns far away, effects immeasurable purification.
The fruit of a Sunday Pradakshina is Siva's abode, that of Monday is merger in Shiva form, that of Tuesday is termination of dead and cyclic death, that of Wednesday is divinity through skill in philosophy and art, that of Thursday is lordship over gods and god-men, that of Friday is lordship of the Lotus Lady.
A Saturday Pradakshina confers the astronomical benefits of a 9-planet conjunction in the 11th house. The above effects are magnified if done on Sivaratri, New Year Day, or during the 3 months, mid-October to mid-January. The fruits increase by a factor of 1 crore if done on the 2 solstices, or on the day the moon is in the Maja asterism during February to March, or during the pre-dawn hour, or during solar eclipse, or Vidipada Yoga. As to the ritual of the spiritual round, one abjures all thought of the opposite sex on the day of Pradakshina. After bathing one wears clean white clothes, applies the holy ash and proceeds, giving alms but without accepting any. One does not wear shirt or shawl or carry an umbrella. Free from fear, anger, irritation or sorrow, one walks on bare feet, without using vehicles. Without swinging one's arms about, with a silent soft tread, one saunters like a queen in her 10th month. One bows, first to the holy hill from each of the 8 cardinal directions and then 248 to the lord of that direction enshrined in the linga there. One bows mentally to the incorporeal gods and siddhibhyas going the rounds, and keeps to the side. One could keep silence of speech and mind, or one could allow thoughts to flow on to the hill of fire, or one could sing and listen to songs of devotional praise. In the company of those of lofty character, one could halt here and there and enjoy a feast of fruit and milk. Otherwise, simple food free of flesh may be taken. In conclusion, the Arunachala Puranam declares, the residents of Tiruvannamalai must scrupulously follow the above rules. Pilgrims from far-away places are allowed to do the holy round according to their capacity. One who reads or listens to Arunachala Mahatmayam, glory of Arunachala, enjoys long life, prosperity and has all his sins washed away and attains the lotus feet of Lord Arunachala.